guys, my name is Lou and these are my books and my very messy beside bed shelf. Today we're making a video that I've been actually interested in making for a bit because this is something that I've been seeing. Like, this isn't a video, well, okay, I've seen things about this kind of video going around, but I haven't seen it about this specific topic. I do mean the Booktok videos, like people on BookTube talking about Booktok. And this video falls within that kind of vein, but it's just reading versus social media in general. And reading has been around for forever, but social media hasn't. And the way social media has impacted reading in the last 5 years or so has gone up pretty dramatically, which is interesting. So I just want to talk about what I've seen and what I've been reading because I did some research on this topic. And a lot of what I have observed myself is what people have been saying on blog posts and articles online. So I'm just going to go through that and explain to you, like, what the fuck is going on with reading and social media. Because at this point, genuinely, I personally think that people care more about the aesthetic of having a lot of books behind you, the aesthetic of like being seen reading a book in public, the aesthetic of annotating a book more than just reading the book and enjoying it. So again, my first main point was being a reader versus actually reading. And this falls into a couple of different categories because this has been it doesn't fall really into different categories, but this has been around since BookTube was around, and BookTube has been around longer than Booktok. But BookTube started off as like pretty similarly to Booktok. Just Booktok is just like hasn't fallen out of that yet. And what I mean is that people are using it to promote their books. People are using it, publishers specifically, are using it to promote authors, are using it to promote certain books that they have coming out through people who have the best aesthetic, not people who have actual reading like taste, not people who have like actually been reading for years and years. I'm one of the original people on Booktok, not Booktok, on BookTube. Like not like an original, but I was here on BookTube before like Booktok got its start. I just was never really consistent with my posting until now, and now I have almost 300 subscribers, so we're moving with it. But here's something interesting regarding Booktok versus BookTube, is that both of them have gone through this phase. BookTube specifically has gone through the phase of not being trustworthy for book recommendations because it's been very cookie cutter, because it's been like the same 15 books or some shit that people have seen. And Booktok is going through that same thing. But however, Booktok actually isn't technically a homogenous society on that, because like, this is my second point. Booktok isn't completely homogenous with that. Sure, most of the books that you see getting promoted are popular books, and it's what a specific article, Is Booktok the Problem? That specific article. I'll link all of my articles that I used for this down below if you want to read those, because those are actually really good. Because it puts through like the extremes of Booktok versus it's like both the extremes ends of Booktok, of like what people are thinking of Booktok anyways. Like, they think of Booktok as a problem, or Booktok is just being misunderstood like BookTube was, or just like that middle ground. And again, Booktok isn't totally homogenous, and in one of these articles it's referred to as factory settings Booktok, which I think is a really good way to explain it, because essentially all of these books, like the Coho books, Sarah J. Maas, Holly Black, what other popular books are going around right now, Daughter of the Moon Goddess, those books, all of those books are mainly on factory settings Booktok. Like, those are the books you immediately think of when you think Booktok, and when you're looking at book recommendations, those are the books that come up. Mostly romances. If you're looking for dark romances, BookTok isn't totally homogenous. However, BookTok is facing this interesting thing because BookTok came out in the era of where TikTok has been, as people have been trying to shut down TikTok for like, I think a couple of years now, and BookTok has gone, ha! No, it's like the cult of Dionysus, back when ancient Greece was still a thing. It's like they were trying to like, get it to like, you know, go away, and they were like, no. So they settled on trying to control it. And I think that's what's probably going to happen in like the next year and a half or so with BookTok. TikTok in general, but BookTok specifically, since that's what we're talking about. Another point I have is that there's like a lot of lack of genuine feedback about a lot of books. Like, okay, so this isn't a great example, but Colleen Hoover's books very recently, like within the last year and a half or so, though, that's the only time where they have been getting actual serious criticism, because of their content. Because there was this YouTuber, Caleb, I completely forget his last name, but I'll put his picture here because I know him, like, because I've watched his videos. And he hates Colleen Hoover just as much as I do. He's been talking about Coho and the issues within her books for actual years now. And his least favorite book of Colleen Hoover is November 9. And I read November 9 when it was still considered YA. Do you understand? Colleen Hoover's books are not considered YA in any way, but that is like mostly a publisher thing. Because again, ACOTAR and Throne of Glass and Crescent and Throne of Glass were considered YA for a good minute. They were considered YA for at least like the first 5 years that they came out. Like, truly. I think Crescent City is the only books that SJM publish that aren't considered YA right straight from the bat. That's what I'm saying. But again, people have been talking about Coho mostly for like the past year and a half or so, when people have been pointing this out for literal years, like maybe for maybe 10 years or so, because November 9 came out in 2012. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. November 9 came out in 2012. That's when it was published. And I read that book. I've read that book. It was in my middle school library. I've told the story before. Yeah. Seriously, Coho's books have issues, and only recently have people been talking about it. But again, people love her books. For what reason, I couldn't tell you. And I'm not going to be reading any Coho books soon to find out. But like, genuinely, there's been a lack of like genuine reviewers. Like, people aren't actually going to say what they think about a popular book, unless it's trending to say bad things about it, for fear of getting canceled. Like, and here's something that's really, really funny. I posted my Fourth Wing video. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. But like, quite literally with my Fourth Wing video, that came out right around the perfect time where people were actually starting to criticize Fourth Wing and its contents and all of that. Because Fourth Wing has a lot of issues. And a lot of the issues with Fourth Wing are actually getting translated into a lot of other like new adult subcategory books. I'm not going to go into it. But yeah, there's like a lack of genuine feedback on BookTok, and that makes publishers flock to it for the commercialism aspect of it. Because publishers can literally pay creators who will say anything about a book for a paycheck, or just to get free books, do book unboxings, stuff like that. They will say literally fucking anything for that paycheck, and the publisher knows it. So they can give them an undisclosed amount and like have positive press for their book from like several different creators, whose videos will reach millions. And automatically people will have a positive light on this book, and so they'll go out to buy it. You know, that's typically how it works. That's how it worked with BookTube for a while too, until BookTube actually got off its high horse a while ago, like a good while ago. And now BookTube is like BookTube is seen as like the less pretty big sister to Booktok, which is actually kind of funny to me. I'm not really on Booktok, to be honest. I have done my fair share of doom scrolling, but I'm not entirely. I mean, I do have a BookTok account. I make some pretty videos I think are funny, but they probably aren't. But you know, that's just how it is at this point. Sorry. I just got my hair done yesterday and it's like kind of bothering me a little bit because I'm getting used to it. Anyways, my next thing is that being a reader doesn't mean the same as actually reading books. And what I mean by this is that, like, okay, so listen, like, being a reader at the moment is pretty much all about the aesthetic. Like, and that's kind of what bothers me because, like, I consider myself an avid reader. I went through like a 2 or 3 year reading slump in like the middle. But I consider myself an avid reader. I consider myself someone who reads books for fun because reading is how I decompress from the internet. And the internet is an interesting place. And I just don't want to deal with the internet for longer than I have to because the internet is starting to scare me. Even though I grew up on it, the internet's really just starting to bother me a little bit. I'm not going to go into that. If you guys want me to, leave comments down below. But the internet's starting to bother me a little bit, and I use reading as a way to decompress and, you know, get away from the world, you know? So I actually read. And do I care about the aesthetic of what I'm reading? Yes, that's why I buy special editions. That's why I have an entire special edition shelf full of my Illumicrate, my Broken Binding, and my Fairy Loot books. Because I have so many Fairy Loot books, actually, because I have a Fairy Loot subscription. And honestly, I personally think that Fairy Loot is worth better value than Illumicrate. But you didn't hear that from me. Anyways. But, like, I'm genuinely serious when I say that being a reader doesn't require actually reading anymore. Because you could literally regurgitate what other people say, just put it into, like, and just format different sentences out of it, and people will believe that you read the book. People will. If you read it, if you watch enough reviews, people will believe that you read the book. So you don't actually have to read the book. That's it. That's it. Which is honestly pretty sad. And then book owning. I'm guilty of this. I'm very guilty of this. Book owning is essentially a cult of commercialism. And yes, I own a lot of books. I own a lot of special edition books. And there's a special edition book set that I'm planning on getting later this month. But my point still stands. People will literally buy books just for the aesthetic of it. Like, and you've seen those videos on like Booktok and BookTube of people complaining about how ugly book covers have been getting and like AI book covers and shit like that. People have been complaining about it a lot. Like a lot. And honestly, I complain about it too because my thing with owning books is that I would have my entire Kindle library. I would have everything on a Kindle. I would. If I didn't like the feeling of reading a physical book. That's why I own so many. But I've fallen into this trap as well where I want pretty editions of books, but I'm not within the demographic of people who need to own multiple editions of every book they own. Yeah. And that's why I have more space and I have more books than everybody else because I like having one edition of every book I own, but they're good editions. Literally, I could sell everything on my shelves for what? Maybe $100K if I really wanted to. And that's not including my my special editions. For my special editions, I could get $10K for maybe 5 of them, tops. I'm serious. I'm serious. But like commercialism, seriously. For commercialism, capitalism, specifically with my Fourth Wing copy, I'm still looking for someone to sell it to. I may just list it on Mercari and see what happens. Mercari or Pango. That's probably what's going to happen. I know I do have someone who's interested in it, but I haven't checked the DM recently on Instagram. And if you're watching this, I'm very sorry I haven't done that. I've been crazy busy. But I will be getting back to you eventually. Once I remember. I actually have remembered, and once I finish this video, I'm probably going to reply to your DM. But yeah, commercialism of book owning. Literally, people are literally obsessed with owning multiple editions of the same book. The only book I own multiple editions of is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and that's just because I loved it so much. That's literally the only reason I bought that book. I bought the anniversary edition is because I love that book so much. It's literally one of my favorite books of all time, and I think it's well on its way to becoming my favorite book of all time. Just saying. Right? So yeah. And then can we also talk about the aesthetic of being a book girly? Like, I consider myself a book girly, but being looped in with all the other girlies who literally consider themselves book girlies when the aesthetic is iced coffee from the Starbucks at Barnes or whatever from Waterstones, walking around with the Barnes and Noble like little bag that they give you for being a premium member. I'm a premium member. I still haven't gotten that bag yet. Like literally just taking photos and posting like come book shopping with me videos. Like, that's all fine and dandy, but it's really just like, there are some people who just take it too far and make it their entire personality, like being a book girly. And I'm out here like, is that your only defining trait, that you just frolic in bookstores? Is that it? Because I've seen these videos of like where boyfriends take their girlfriends out book shopping. And literally in all of these videos that I've seen, every girl picks up the same fucking books, the same romances, the same fantasies, the same like the same like lit fics. I'm literally out here like, where's the variety? So that's how I know most of them are chronically on Booktok. Which I think is very interesting. Let's just talk about the whole like recommendations thing on Booktok. This video is meant to be about social media and reading in general, but we're talking about Booktok a lot because that's where most of this is happening right now. And it did happen. BookTube went through this phase. It's not going through it anymore, but BookTube is going through this phase. Okay. But seriously, I'm genuinely serious. Booktok isn't all bad. There are just some really bad recs on there, and that segues into my next point of the popularization of problematic books and problematic authors. So let's pick something. My easiest example is Colleen Hoover, because I know the most about her problematic things, and I know that in her personal life, there was something going around about her son. I don't really remember what that was, and I'm not going to pretend I do because I don't want to spread any misinformation. But we're not going to use her as an example. Let's use SJM as an example for crying out loud, just this once. Personally, I also am not very knowledgeable on the whole SJM drama that's going on. I know that there is drama. I know that there's some drama going around about there's some sort of like racism, ableism, and whatnot going on within her books. But I haven't looked into it because I own all of the books that she's put out right now, except for A Court of Silver Flames. But I'm not reading A Court of Silver Flames. Fuck that. I own pretty much all of her books. And I plan on reading all of these books that I own. Plus Crescent City 3, once that comes out. I have it pre-ordered. Literally. But my problem is that, like, I know there's stuff going on, but I've been reading her books. She was one of my gateway authors. Literally. And so after I read all her books, that is when I'll look into the whole SJM kind of thing. And then I'll decide whether I want to get rid of all my editions. Because literally, all of the editions I have of her books like specifically for the A Court of Thorns and Roses and Throne of Glass series, literally all of those are out of print. All of those are out of print. They're all out of print. You can't really get them anymore. So I'm glad I have them. So quite literally, I very much could sell all of these books for at least $10K. If I choose to. Because that's the, commercialism of books. Commercialism, the cult of buying books. That's just how it is at this point. But seriously, but I'm not going to read, no, I'm not going to look into all of the drama going on within SJM's books, because I don't want to taint the reading experience before I get a chance to finish all of it. And I'm going to try and see if I can see some of these things myself, if I remember to see them at all, because I do enjoy her books. I do. I haven't looked into like what's going on with them really, and I'm not going to until I finish all the books that I have of her. But like, I just really don't want to dilute the reading experience I have for her, especially since I own all of her books. it's just not worth it. It's not. It just really isn't. Anyways, let's move into the fact that like TikTok has popularized dark romance. Like, I don't know where dark romance came from. I really fucking don't. And I'm going to do some research into that and make a whole different video on that, because I've read one dark romance book. I read one. And I was like, what's the appeal? What's the appeal? I mean, like, I get the kind of appeal it's supposed to have, but it just wasn't done well enough, Just wasn't done well, But anyways, literally, most of these books, I realize that a lot of people do recognize that these kinds of relationships, where a guy is stalking you and you fall in love with your fucking stalker who murders someone for you, like, I understand that a lot of people are seeing that as bad, like, and that it's just like a fantasy type of thing. But there are a lot of people who seem to think that this is how relationships are supposed to work, because this book is romanticizing abuse and toxicity, and it's usually tagged as dark romance. Like, co-host books, they are not tagged as dark romance at all, but they could be, considering what they contain. I'm going to be very specifically, in November 9, the main girl finds out that the main guy burned her house down, so she gets a restraining order. And what he does is he violates the restraining order, and is essentially like, you have two options. One of them is just to come and forgive me and read the manuscript, and the other one is to never talk to me again. I would have picked never talk to me again and called the police, because you don't violate a restraining order without consequences. But she forgives him because that's just how co-host books work. Anyways, that's not considered dark romance. That's considered a cute, fluffy romance, somehow. And as someone who doesn't read a lot of romance, that doesn't make sense to me. It truly doesn't. But, like, seriously, Haunting and Hunting Adeline, those books, I've never read them. I'm not going to, but I've seen the content. I saw the content warnings. And I'm out here like, please, the dating pool is already so small. I beg of you, do not turn any more men who are so fucking weird and creepy into what's going on in here. Please, I beg of you. Like, I don't know if this is what people actually want. I know there are some people who recognize this as bad and it's just like for fun for them. But I know there are people who would take this literally. And dark romance never really made sense to me in the first place. So I'm just like, I'm sitting here like, it's bad. It's very, very bad. There's also a deep oversaturation of the book market right now. like based on the tropes that are most popular, like enemies to lovers. What is it? Not really found family. No, I wouldn't say that. Dark romance. That's a trope. That is a big fucking trope. I hate it. Enemies to lovers. Insta love. Forced proximity. Fake dating. Shit like that. That is the romance market specifically is very oversaturated with all the trends that have been getting very popular, and it's causing a lack of variety within like all of these books. What's a book that I know really like that doesn't really fit the enemies to lovers trope? Couldn't tell you. Fourth Wing. Fourth Wing is not enemies to lovers. I don't even think it's like anything to lovers at this point. Like the whole thing, like the entire book is literally Violet simping after Xaden, and Xaden going from I want to kill you to I guess you're kind of cool to I would fucking die for you. That's not anything. That's literally, that's not enemies or anything of anything, man. I just, like, there's no, like, it's set up to be an enemies to lovers kind of thing. Because he's like, because in the beginning of the book, he's literally like, your mom killed my father. And Violet goes, your dad killed my brother. And, like, those things are kind of not really comparable at all. And they just go at each other like that. That's, like, the only time they're really ever gunning for each other. It's like, I'm like, that's not an enemies to lovers in any way possible. At all. Like, anyways, I'm not gonna go into it. I already went into it on my, in my Fourth Wing video. That's just my best example because I don't read romance. I really don't. But, like, that's my problem with romance, is that if I were to read romance, it would have to be done very well for me to enjoy it. Because with the oversaturation of the market, quality does not mean that it's going to be popular. And popular does not mean it's going to be quality. Like, books like The Spanish Love Deception, Love Hypothesis, stuff like that. Like, those books have been really, really popular. But when I've read them, I haven't read them. But what I've done is, what I do before I read a book is before I buy a book is I read the first chapter. Now, so I can stop the overwhelming flow of, like, books that I'm buying. But yeah, I read the first chapter of most books so that I can, like, you know, make sure I'm actually going to read these books eventually. But seriously, I read the first chapter of The Love Hypothesis and I was like, what the fuck? I read the first chapter of Icebreaker. No, I didn't read the first chapter of Icebreaker. I was like, maybe I should get it. So I opened it to a random page, and immediately it's the characters fucking. I'm like, what? Also, these people are meant to be fucking teenagers? And they're fucking in BDSM? And I'm like, okay, no. I'm like, no, absolutely fucking not. No. Anyways, but again, lack of variety. There's kind of like an oversaturation of the book market right now for everything you're looking for, and none of it's really ever tagged correctly. Because just because publishing companies are trying to sell. Commercialism. People are trying to sell. Capitalism. People are trying to sell. And they're tagging these things as what's going to sell. And it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because these books are not what's advertised. They are not as advertised, but people will gobble them up anyways and then find out later that they are not enemies to lovers. They are not it's not fake dating. It's literally just a trope, a loosely defined trope with smut, and then that'll sell and people will go, this was the best thing I've ever read. I love this so much. 5 stars. And it's like I'm sitting here. I'm sitting here. I'm literally sitting here and I'm like, do people not have standards? Are there like no standards going on right now? Because that's my main problem. My main problem is that, like, within the reading world, with the rise of social media, people are lacking standards for what they're actually reading. People don't exactly care about what they're reading, and it bothers me. It bothers me very deeply, because as someone who both does a lot of research into books and also does read a lot, I do like seeing what people read and like and enjoy. But if people don't really have standards for what they're reading, what's the point in actually taking these recs? What's the point in actually reading these books if, like, no one's actually going to give you a straight answer as to whether it's good or not? Like, I have a lot of issues with, like, Booktok, really. And honestly, I find it very funny. Like, I read the funny shit, and I read and I make funny shit, things I think are funny anyways. But genuinely, like, what has happened to reading right now? Like, considering the rise of social media, considering, like, how many people are posting their reading experiences, how many people are, like, becoming readers because of social media, what's the actual point of being a reader if nobody's actually going to be genuine about it? I really don't know. But honestly, something I do know for myself is that I will continue reading. I will do my own research into my books, and I will do what I want within my own reading space, because reading is my safe space. Reading is the way I decompress from the world. Reading is the only place where I can really be away from technology at all times if I'm completely sucked into a book. That is what I know. And we're going to continue with that. We are going to keep doing that, because genuinely, I don't care what anyone else says. I'm a book girly in my own definition. And, like, that's kind of all that really matters to me. I just kind of wanted to really, like, point out whatever the fuck is going on with social media versus reading. Because genuinely, it's actually a little bit confusing if you really think about it. And I broke down a lot of the points, but if you really, really want to see a more concise and more storied view of everything, I'll link all of the articles that I read for this video for my research down below, and you can read those in their entirety, because I only, like, picked a few points that I wanted to talk about, but you can read everything in those articles and, like, see for yourself, judge for yourself. Come back to the comments and see what you'd like to see, actually, and like, open a discussion in the most respectful way possible, obviously, because we're not here to cancel anybody. No, I'm not here to cancel anybody who's become a reader because of social media. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that social media has made reading kind of disingenuous in its own way, and it's kind of interesting to me. But anyways, guys, that brings this video to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please hit the like button. And if you want to see more content from me, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get notified every time I post a new video. I post weekly on this channel, so don't miss out. Also, if you want to see more from me, leave me comments down below. What I should put on my TBR, what I should move up my TBR, video ideas, or just say hi in the comments. What are you actually reading in the comments? I always get really excited when I see comments from you guys. It makes me feel so happy and appreciated. Anyways, guys, I love my little numas. Bye!